Well, it was a big day in Israel yesterday because this was the day that was set aside for the Israeli Knesset to discuss the Jewish rights on the Temple Mount. What are their rights? Now, as of right now, supposedly they have no rights. They're not allowed to pray there. They're not allowed to worship there. They have been allowed, with police escort, to go up and visit the place. So all of a sudden, there's pressure being brought to bear upon the Israeli Knesset to actually deal with the issue. Now, let me make sure that all of you understand what happened in 1967 when the 67 war broke out. The Prime Minister of Israel called the Jordanian king, King Hussein, and said, if you will stay out of the war, we will not bother you. We don't have a quarrel against you. But if you do attack us, then we will come against you with all of our might. Well, King Hussein decided he could not sit the war out. He had to fight alongside of his Arabic brethren. So the Jordanian forces, which had controlled the West Bank, the area called Biblical Judea and Samaria, and also had controlled East Jerusalem, they attacked from there. The Israelis then counterattacked, drove them out of East Jerusalem, drove them all the way across the Jordan River, and Israel has possessed that territory from that time until now. So since 1967, we're talking about 50 years or so, that Israel has now possessed this territory. However, because they wanted to respect Muslim holy sites, as soon as the firing stopped, the Israeli people invited the Muslim Waqf back to administer the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Well, that has slowly evolved until the Waqf is over the entire Temple Mount, and for a long time, Jews did not go there at all. However, in recent years, the last 3 years or so, there's been quite a campaign to increase Jewish visitation to the Temple Mount, and it is increasing dramatically. The logic was this: if we don't go there, then the world will get the message that it doesn't mean anything to us because the Arabs go there every day. So the Jews have been going there increasingly. Okay, now that's the way things got to where they are now. Even though the Jews go there, the Muslim Waqf does not allow them to pray nor worship. The Jewish police that have ultimate authority over the place fear riots. So since the Muslims threaten to riot and the police don't want trouble, they have said, even though you have a right to worship here and to pray here, we're not going to allow you to because it endangers the national security. So the Muslims quickly learned, of course, that all you have to do is throw a few rocks and you will stop any form of worship or prayer. So the policy is by the Israeli police that Jews cannot pray and cannot worship on the Temple Mount. Now, here's where the irony really sets in. Because Almighty God said 37 times, actually, in the Old Testament, I will put my name right there on the Temple Mount where you built my house. This actually was spoken to King Solomon, who was the one who built the first temple in 568 BC. God said to him, I will put my name there forever. This will be a house of prayer unto me. Well, the one place that God said, I will put my name there, and this will be a house of prayer unto me, is the one place on earth that Jews are forbidden to pray. I don't know of any other place in the world that Jews are forbidden to pray other than the one place where the God of Israel said, I will put my name there forever. Isn't this ironic? Is that a coincidence? Or is there, in fact, a clash of good versus evil, of God versus Satan at this point? Now, the Bible tells us that the Battle of Armageddon is going to be fought over control of Jerusalem. Zechariah 14:2 says, I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. I am persuaded that what we're seeing right now is more than just a political conflict. It is, in fact, the ultimate conflict between light and darkness, between good and evil. And the focal point of it all is that 35 acres, the place where God said, I will put my name there. I mean, it's the place that God chose. It's Mount Moriah. The Temple Mount is Mount Moriah. And God chose that mountain in order for Abraham to prove his faithfulness when he sent Abraham to offer his son Isaac on the altar. Of course, God stopped that before it could happen, but he wanted to make sure that Abraham was willing to do it if he was, in fact, asked to do it. Many other things have happened there on that site. The first temple was built there. The second temple was built there. And the Bible prophesies the third temple will be built there. How soon? It could be within 2 years or 3. We don't know for sure, but it's right away. The preparations are all made. All the furniture has now been created. The priests are being trained right now on how to administer there in the holy place. It's an amazing thing. Let me tell you the story about what happened yesterday in the Israeli Knesset. The Knesset Interior Committee's subcommittee on Temple Mount issues, led by M.K. David Zur, held its first meeting Monday. During the meeting, MKs discussed what rights, if any, Jews had on the Temple Mount. Speaking at the meeting, Temple Mount rights activist Rabbi Yehuda Glick, who is on a hunger strike because of a police order preventing him from visiting the Mount, said that Jews on the Temple Mount are subject to being arrested for illegal assembly just for being there, to being victims of riots, and to being forced to flee because of unrest. Glick was detained several weeks ago on the Temple Mount after he videotaped a Muslim man who hurled obscene curses at him. After Glick took photographs of the Mount and shared them on the internet, police confiscated his cellular phone and detained him. Only when he agreed to stop sharing photos did police give back his phone. Since then, he has been banned from going onto the Temple Mount. The Temple Mount is the center of my life, he told MKs. Glick, a professional guide who takes groups up to the mountain, said that April is my busiest month. I was supposed to lead 20 groups on a visit, and I had to cancel them all. I am on a hunger strike because I expect the members of this committee to do something about this. Subcommittee Chairman Zur said that he disapproved of the ban against Glick. It's the easy way for police, whom he said really didn't want to confront Arab unrest and challenges to Jews who ascend the Mount. I will discuss this with the heads of the Jerusalem police. He said, I think more needs to be done to ensure that these visits are successful and the police treat them in a professional manner. A spokesperson for the far left, NGO Ir Amim, which supports keeping Jews off the Temple Mount, said that Glick and other groups advocating Jewish visits to the site wrapped themselves in the cloak of freedom of worship, but really had a much more radical agenda, the construction of the third temple. In response, Shai Malka of the Manigat Yehudit, that's the Jewish leadership faction of the Likud, said that I and Jews all over the world pray for the rebuilding of the third temple. We have never tried to hide this, but I do not see how our prayers threaten the rights of anyone else. Apparently, you believe we Jews do not have the same rights as anyone else. And this says a great deal about Amim and how the group operates. Despite being the holiest site in Judaism, Jewish access to the Temple Mount is very limited, including a blanket ban on Jewish worship there in what activists condemn as capitulation to Muslim extremism. Israeli police, in an attempt to appease the Muslim Waqf, which was left in charge of the compound after the 1967 Six-Day War, banned Jews from praying or performing any other form of worship. Now, that was the discussion this time yesterday in the Israeli Knesset. They're discussing not only praying on the Temple Mount, but even the possibility of building the third temple there. Is it going to happen? Yes. The Bible explicitly prophesies there will be a temple standing there within 3.5 years of the signing of the Palestinian-Israeli peace agreement. Whenever that agreement is signed, whether it's by April the 29th of this year, the deadline that John Kerry himself has set, whether it's by then or whenever it does take place, whenever there's an agreement between Palestinians and Israelis, within 3.5 years, a temple will be built and completed, and animal sacrifices, such as the Jewish people conducted in the Old Testament, will be resumed there in the Temple Mount. Now, that's what's coming. You're going to see it. As a matter of fact, Endtime Ministry will plan to be on site when the temple is begun, and we will plan to be there at the dedication of the temple so that you can see it televised from all over, from there to all over the world. So here we are. We're marching toward this thing. We've been talking about it a long time here at Politics and Religion, but now then they're talking about it at the government headquarters in the Israeli Knesset. That's what the point of discussion was yesterday. Why? Hasn't happened. I don't think it's happened before. But now all of a sudden it's becoming a front burner issue. Why? Because the time for the fulfillment is approaching right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you all this to let you know that the second coming of Jesus Christ to this earth is getting very close now. We're given these signs not just to talk about them, but we're given these signs so that we can know that the battle of Armageddon and the second coming is very near. Now, we know that Jesus left this earth 2,000 years ago. He left from the Mount of Olives overlooking the Temple Mount. And as he ascended into the sky, 2 angels appeared to the disciples and said, "You men of Galilee, why gaze you up into the heavens? Don't you know that this same Jesus that has been taken away from you into the heavens shall so come again in like manner as you have seen him go?" So the second coming of Jesus was prophesied 2,000 years ago, but the time for it to be fulfilled is only approaching right now. And all these things are signs that we're getting close.